Okay, good evening everybody. I'm doing this video for conversion of clothing. So I actually received some comments asking for a tutorial on how to fit clothings or to convert the clothings to Dust 3D. So what I have here is real Hayabusa's model, which is one of the commissions that I have. So I'll be fitting this particular outfit to Dust 3D. So this particular model is from the DOA 6 game, right? So yeah, so I'll just go through. So this is the face, and this is the mask that he has. Okay, so this is the exact model. Right, so I won't be bothering with the face and the mask right now. So first thing what you want to do, right, is to fit the model over the Genesis 8 figure. So how do you get this Genesis 8 figure? If you remember my last tutorial, when you save out the model, I asked you to keep the model somewhere, right? So the model that was extracted from the Dust 3D. So this model will be the model that you copy or you import into Blender. So for me, I actually have them on default. I save up the Blender Genesis 8 and Genesis 8 male and female model in my startup file. So I have them because I work with them every day, right? So what you need to do is just to copy or to import the Genesis 8 figure into Blender. So the goal of this tutorial, or what you want to achieve, right, is to fit the clothing onto Genesis 8. Okay, so this is what you do roughly. So let me on the screencast so that you can see the buttons that I'm pressing currently. Okay, so currently I actually updated my Blender to 2.90. So some of the functions might be a little bit different from the last tutorial, which if I'm not wrong is 2.82. Yeah, so this is a later version. I'm still somewhat getting used to this particular version. It's some of the things are a little bit weird. So in any case, let's just go through. So basically what you need to do is to fit this model onto Genesis 8 male. Okay, so this is what you do. Basically you use the bones that you already imported, that is imported in this case it's a FBX file, if I'm not remembering right, wrongly. Okay, so under this one, object data, view display, I like to use sticks and in front, so this makes it easier for me to see like the skeleton. So what you're doing now, right, is that you are using this skeleton to move or to fit the clothing as closely as possible to the Dust Genesis 8 model, right? So something like this. Okay, so you just move this as much as possible. So rotate R and rotate R. Okay. Now when you're moving this bones, right, on the top right hand corner, you'll notice that there's this rotation value down here. So what you want to do, right, is to see, like for example, once you move it somewhere around here, look at the value that is given, and this is the amount that you're supposed to move. So in this case, it will be roughly around 7. Okay, so the reason why I asked you to look at it, right, is because you want to mirror that here. So rotate wrong bone, sorry. Okay, so rotate Y and -7. So they are mirror images. So if you move this bone by 7 degrees, then this bone will be negative 7 degrees. Okay, so this is the manual way. If I'm not wrong, you can actually, let me see if I have, there is a way to rename all these bones so that I can play around with them in a more uh, useful manner. Let's see. Names, methods, auto rename. I don't think I have that. Sorry, let me see if there is a auto rename Blender. Alright, so we have the module, names, and auto rename. Right. So it doesn't even work, damn it, because the bone names are different. Oh well, that's what you get for working with game files directly. Okay, the reason why I'm asking that, right, is because if you can do an auto rename, then you can use the symmetry, and when you move this bone, the other bone will move as well. But since all the bone names are different because of the way that this game was ripped, the bones was ripped out in such a manner, so we cannot use this method, unfortunately. So we have to do everything manually. So this one will be roughly 40. 40 and rotate y negative 40. Okay, so something like that. Okay, then you want to do a resize. Okay, so in this particular case, this one doesn't have any root bones. So when if you do a resize, you resize everything like differently. So a tip for that, right, is if you put in your pivot location to the 3D cursor, because the 3D cursor is in the center. So when you resize it, you'll actually resize from the 3D cursor, which is in the center, right? So this way you'll be able to move the clothing a little bit closer to the body, somewhat. Okay, so move it forward a little bit. Okay, go to medium. Okay, so as mentioned, basically what you are trying to do is to fit the clothing over the dust figure. So DOA model generally has fairly short neck. If you notice down here, let me hide this. If you notice down here, they actually have fairly short necks. So this might be something that you want to look out for. I am not sure what happened. So let me hide this too. Okay, so like DOA models, they tend to have the neck is a little bit shorter. So this is something that you want to look out for. Okay, so other than that, basically what you need to do now is to, let me just hide this. Okay, so we have the clothing here and hide this body. So we have this head thingy and we have this hood thingy. Let me see if it's one mesh or two. Alright, so it's a single mesh. Okay, so let me put in the materials for this first, so that you can see what we are working with. Sorry, this. Alright, so these are all the textures that I've extracted from the model itself. Okay, obviously we got the wrong textures, so we have Master 2 albino. This is white color and this is the green color version. Green color. Yep, this seems like it. Okay, so this is a different mesh. I'll just leave this out first, and this is skin. So we would actually want to leave that out as well, the skin. Not necessary to look at it. Okay, so something like this. This is the base texture, so I will just remove this part here, and we put in the Genesis 8. So you can see roughly where all these things are supposed to fit in, right? So the easiest way to deal with the arms, especially when you have a symmetrical arm down here, is to just take this part, open the transparency, select the arms, and press P, separate the selection. Okay, so what this does is that it gives you the separates the mesh out so that you can work on them individually, right? Then you can just delete off this one. Okay, and from this one you go to the modifier and put in a mirror modifier, so you have this also, whatever you work with on this one will be reflected there. Okay, so what I like to do normally is to take out this one distance. So what I like to do normally, right, is to take out this part here. This is the glove, so the actual hand itself, and separate it out. Okay, so what happens is that I'll be able to put this out separately, to fit in separately. Easier that way. Okay, so bracer, and this is a glove. Okay, so first thing first is to actually separate out all the bits and pieces, makes things easier. So this one I will combine them together, and this will be the scarf. Okay, so this is the head thingy. Head gear, this is the hood. It's easier this way because since the head is smaller, you can actually adjust the headgear and the hood to fit the head, then drag this down to fit the body, right? Okay, so this is basically the parts. Most of it is okay, so I can separate out the boots as well. Yeah. Okay, so boots. So same thing. This one you can do a mirror modifier. So you just need to work on one. This will be the boots. And the rest of this is your body armor, body suit. So this particular model, the reason why I choose this body armor to do the tutorial is because it's a fairly simple outfit, a full body suit and stuff, right? And also because I'm working on this next, so there's that. Okay, so next what you want to do is to basically fit this body armor to the Dust 3, the Dust 8 model. Okay, so for the sake of later on in Dust 3D, right, you want to, if you want to use smoothing operation, you will need to get rid of all these holes, all this covering. Okay, so basically the reason why do you have this covering is because, if I'm wrong, this is part of the hood. Let me just put this out first. So the reason why you want to have this covering in the game is because they will actually cover a lot of parts that will be sticking out, that things will be seen. So but for us, we don't really care about that, so we want to get rid of it. Because if you try to use the smoothing operation while all these are here, you're gonna end up with some very funky results. So just get rid of it and delete. Okay, so now we have something that we can work with. Okay, so if you notice, if you go into edit mode, right, the clothing will go back to how it was before you move the bones and all that. So if you want it to remain down here, which you will want to do so, you need to apply this modifier, which is the aperture modifier. So just in 2.9, you need to click Ctrl A to apply the modifier. So apply modifier. But if not, if it's the earlier version, I think you can actually, there's a button for you to press to apply. I don't know why they change it this way, but yeah, so they change it this way, so we have to follow suit. Okay, so next you just you just need to fit the clothing uh, more or less to the Genesis model. Okay, so in this case, Ryu is actually fairly muscular, but I am not going to do anything to change the muscular part of the body until I fit this to the DAS Genesis 8 model. Then inside the game, inside DAS, the program itself, and then I will change the body shape. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to roughly try to get it to fit the dust body as much as possible. Okay, so let me see if this works. I am not very sure actually. So if I do a mirror X and a topology, can I move, say, this and that? Ooh, with no topology? Nope, doesn't work. So I'm not sure why some part works, some part doesn't work. And okay, so we have all kinds of funky lines. So let's see if this works this time. Nope, doesn't work. This sucks. Okay, so no choice. We have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is to make everything fit on both sides. Okay, so you don't really have to like make it fit very close. In this case, you will want to do it fairly tightly because this clothing is quite tight. So you just need to adjust it to fit the model, the body itself. Okay, but if you have something like looser clothing, or something that's not so tight, then it's fine to be a little bit loose. So in this case, you won't really want to change the shape too much also, because the armor, this body armor is apparently fairly distinctive of real Hayabusa's armor, or his looks, his identity. So you won't want to change too much of that too. Okay, so just roughly move things around to fit in to the into the body. Make sure that there isn't any very obvious gaps around, and that should be enough. So this part I can't really show any shortcuts or tutorials. You just have to move vertices around until everything's fit properly, so to speak. Okay, so Just slowly move things around until they fit in relatively nicely. It's not going to be 100%, mainly because it's not designed. The clothing is not designed to be uh, fitted to this particular body, so you will have some stuff jerking around and all that, out of place a little bit here and there. It can't really be helped because the body is not designed for this. So just do the best you can, you know, and try to make sure that it's not too obvious, and it should work out just fine. Okay, so the other thing that you can do, right, is like, for example, you have all these gaps down here. You can actually do a little bit of something like that, just to close up the gap a little bit. Make sure that things are not so obvious. And then the other way you can deal with all this is to go from the inside. So if you go inside the body, you can actually see parts that you need to move. So just move this out a little bit until it's outside of the body, and you can be fairly sure that it's where you want it to be. Okay, so this particular mesh, right, and most modern day games meshes are usually made out of multiple pieces. So unless you're doing something like a low poly mobile game or something, that everything is all in one piece. Otherwise, it's best to work with proportional editing fully. If not, then you work with this part with the circle that is not in, then it's a proportional editing and on a smaller scale. Right. So just move things around until you relatively it fits in relatively so. Then you can move on to the next model. Okay, so for skin tight clothing, right, it's actually not too bad, because skin tight clothing, okay, this is the part where you need to use this proportional editing, because otherwise you'll be moving both ends, right? So you don't want to do that. Okay, so where was I? So skin tight clothing is actually easier in a certain sense, in that you just need to make sure that it's above the skin, right? So if you have things like pants or shorts or something, then that'll make things quite a bit more troublesome. Yeah, so if you have like little bits down here that if you move this, you notice that it actually covers up or disappears, then you need to go back to the full proportional editing so that those things will also move along. Right, so you just need to move this around until you get something that you're satisfied with. And I'm very sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. It's like 3 a.m. right now. So, yeah. And I'm a little bit hooked up on Red Bull. So forgive me if I start rambling and doesn't really make sense anymore. You just need to let me know, lah. Right? So basically, as I mentioned, you just need to fit everything relatively closely. Okay, something like that. Just make sure that all the skin parts are covered, and you should be good to go. Okay. Okay, so something like that. Down here a little bit more. Okay, normally, right, I would actually start to change this into quartz and start working on this. But in this case, I don't think I will bother, mainly because DOA 6 has very high mesh count, so it is not actually necessary. So if you have something like say a mobile game model that is a low poly, then you might need to do something like changing it to quartz and start subdividing and all that to get everything to fit properly, right? But high quality model, you don't really need to do that. So another little trick, just to let you know, if say for example you have a little bit of poke through here and there, say if I do this and I have a bit of a poke through, and I don't really want to spend like hours just making sure everything is fits just right. So the other way that you can deal with this, for example, is to put in a shrink wrap modifier. So you put in a shrink wrap modifier, and then the target is your body, this Genesis 8 body, right? Offset maybe depending on your scale, we say 0.1 or something like that, 0.1, depending on the scale that you are working with, right? And then outside. So what does outside does, right, is that it will actually, if you see down here, it will actually allow you to the model to fit. Like for example, you have this gap down here, right? If you don't have this, then it'll be a hole. But if you put in the model, the shrink wrap, then they'll actually move the model to be as close as possible on the surface of your donor, and it will actually cover up all the little holes that you have. So this is fairly useful to plug up all the small holes that you will see, right? And it is very useful if, like for example, you have a skin tight clothing and you want it to really hug the Genesis 8 figure, then this is the modifier that you use to squish everything as close as possible to the skin, right? So this particular bodysuit, they have all kinds of paddings and armor and straps and whatnot, so this is more or less good enough, right? So then what you do is you export this to OBJ. So in this case, let me see, I have a video is my DOA view down here. Legendary Black Falcon. Okay, I'll just use that name. Legendary Black Falcon. So it's Black Falcon bodysuit. And save. Export. Okay, so once you have this exported, you can go to Dust Studio. We'll basically just show you one piece. I don't want this to drag on very long. It's basically a simple tutorial, even though it's like half an hour already. So I'm so sorry for all the rambling. Yeah, so okay, I'll load in the basic Genesis model. And then, because it's a skin tight clothing, so it's fairly straightforward. Right, all you need to do is to import the body. DOA, real, legendary, and bodysuit, and bam, you have it down here. So currently it is an OBJ. So if you move the figure, the suit is not going to move along with it. So what you do is that you take this one, you go to you transfer utility dialog, and you transfer the utility from Genesis 8 model and transfer it to the bodysuit. This is the basics of all the clothing transfer that you will need to do, right? So item shape current, and if you modify, if you have a body custom body shape, you'll want to click this one, the reverse source shape. uh, if this is the default Genesis 8, then you do not need to touch this, right? Then if you want to use the smoothing modifier like I mentioned earlier, you click this one, it will automatically add in the smoothing modifier, right? So with this, you when you move your clothing, it will actually move along. Okay, so generally uh, for skin tight clothing, right, you will have problems with the crotch area. It is fairly common, so you will need to do a bit of cleaning in the weights, in the what do you call that, uh, in the weight pane. Okay, so just go to the node weight pane brush and start cleaning things up a little bit. So maybe you want to tighten this here, you will have to do that anyway. Tighten it up a little bit, smoothen it out here a little bit, something like that. Okay, so just so that if you use this, it won't look too horrible when you are posting things, when you are doing posting. Okay, so this is the very basics of how to get the clothing to fit into your dust figure. So of course, when you get into things like very loose clothing or skin or shirt, maybe say, or pants or skirt, there will be a lot of other things, but those I will cover on a as per need basis. Say for example, if you have any questions, uh, let me know in the comments, and then I will post follow-up tutorials as and when I see the opportunity to do so. Okay, so this one is basically a very straightforward, very simple, or the most straightforward and the simplest method I know of to get a piece of clothing onto your dust figure that is not designed for Genesis 8. So in this case, this figure, this clothing is actually designed for DOA body, which is totally different, or not say totally different, but a lot more muscular than the Genesis 8, right? So with this, you can actually fit in basically anything. So say for example, if I put in the boots, so the boots are actually fairly close already. All I need to do is just to apply this and move things around a little bit. Move things around a little bit here and there, make sure that everything is working correctly, something like that. Okay, so something like that, and I will export this. Actually, let me just finish this entire bodysuit, because this one has quite a number of things that you can like for example the glove and all that. So let me just finish this. So if you find that it's a bit too long, then you can just stop halfway. No problem with me, right? So say for example the boots, and bam, you got it down here. Then if I Genesis 8 boots default smoothing, let it run. And bam, we got the boots. So you will notice all these gaps down here, right? This is basically what happens if you forget to remove double, right? So after remove double, then I will export again the boots. Okay, so now you come back to the boots, and if you go here, geometry, edit geometry, and update base geometry. So you can actually select the boots again, and it will actually, oh no, sorry, because the numbers is changed. So you have to re-import the entire thing. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you re-import the entire thing, and then you re-rig again. So the boots current as smoothing modifier, and run. And you have the boots rigged to your figure as well. So if I'm looking at this, I think here. Yeah, so okay, so let me export this, the boots, and Falcon boots, edit geometry, update base geometry, update vertex position, and notice here. Right. So you can use this to update, like for example, after you finish rigging and all that, you don't want to do the rigging over again, or if you have already done most of the work, texturing and whatnot, and you don't want to redo all the work again, if you notice a problem, you can use this update vertices in order to update geometry, base geometry, in order to update your geometry without moving everything else. Okay, so this is basically, this is the boots done. So bodysuit and the boots is done. And now for the glove. The glove is the most troublesome part. Okay, so this has a mirror. So I will apply. And then I will move this a little bit. Rotate X just a little bit. Okay, so the idea as always is to move this close as possible to your body. Or before that, if I don't want to, okay, so if I have this pose still, it's basically a lot of moving things around when you're doing clothing fitting. So move the arms here, move the arms around, make sure that it's fitted properly and all that. So you just need to make sure that it is roughly fitted. In this case, it doesn't have to be too exact. So you just need it to fit roughly so, right? Then you can clean it up later. So in this case, I will remove these bones. I will apply the modifier. so that I can get this base to work with. And then in this case, I will want to, for the glove, I will want to turn it to quartz and work with it around from there, because you need to do that. So Control J to alternate J, sorry, to turn them to quartz. Okay, and the easiest way to deal with this kind of, to see if there's any problem with the mesh, is to go into the UV, and you can see like problems like these parts here. Then UV sync, just to make sure everything is in sync, and you can see like this is where you have parts of the UV, parts of the mesh that is out, and you can clean it up. Okay, so the reason why you want to clean up this mesh down here is so that when you do when you put in this subdivide operation, it will not be so messy, right? Because subdivide will basically subdivide two lines. So if you have already the mesh that is not in proper line, then you will find the mesh will actually get pretty messed up. But you don't have to clean it up too much. Just make sure that things have a bit of space, and if you do a subdivide, it doesn't go way out, then that should be sufficient. Though, because you can spend a lot of time, I have literally spent like hours trying to make everything perfectly square. So if you've seen some of my live streams, I tend to do that. Yeah, so just kind of make sure everything is relatively clean, so that you don't run into any problems when you try to work with the mesh, when you try to subdivide the mesh. Basically try making them as square as possible, if that makes sense. Roughly something like that. Then what you want to do next is to subdivide it, as mentioned. Wait, before that, We get rid of this inner part. Okay, then subdivide it, and then for the gloves you will want to move this down. For the gloves you will want to shrink wrap it, move this up here. So shrink wrap to Genesis 8 model, offset 0.1, or depending on what is your scale, you want to play with this around. And then outside surface. So what does outside surface does, right, is that it basically shows that it basically tells the program to fit it as close as possible to the donor model no matter what. So previously the outside that we use is only for the outside. So if, say for example, this one is a little bit out, it will not stick it to the skin. But if outside surface, then it will try to stick as much as possible to the skin. So even places like this that is already in excess outside of the skin, they will actually shrink to fit into the skin. So it's very useful for skin tight items, and especially for gloves, right? So in our case, what we have is basically a half glove, so it's slightly more complicated, but yeah, you still can use this. So we can just move all these things in a little bit. Make sure it's fitted to the finger. Okay, so roughly like that. If you have things like this particular parts that are protruding out, you can do a go to the vertex group and define a group, say for example knuckles. My spelling sucks. And then assign and go to the shrink wrap under vertex group, put in your knuckles. And oops, it should be the other way around. I'm sorry. Assign and inverted, remove. Okay, so with this, right, you have your knuckle parts down here, and you need to move. You can move them in and out. See, like so. So with this, you'll be like, if you have any parts that you do not want to shrink wrap to skin level, this is how you exclude them out of the shrink wrap process. Okay, so something like that. Then the bracer. Okay, so this is basically how you deal with gloves on a very basic level. So yeah, so I will export this as gloves. There you have it. So you have gloves. So say for example, if I pose the hands like so, yeah, works close enough. Okay, so this is basically it. How you fit clothing, skin tight clothing, shoes, boots, gloves. So heel, if you have a high heel and all that, those will be a totally different, not say totally different, but it's a different way of dealing with it. So I will cover that in the future, next time, assuming if anybody wants to learn how to do heel shoes, if they have a problem with heels, then I will cover that. But this video has been going on for 1 hour, so I will end this tutorial here. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, just shoot me a comment, and I will see if I can answer them in either through the comments itself or through another video. Thank you for watching. Yeah, so have fun. Bye bye.